Hi, I'm Nicole, and this is Just Press Play. This is the place where we get to talk about life, culture, and faith and how it affects us as Christian believers. Welcome! Today, we're going to be talking about something that links us all in this pandemic, and it is the shared experience of loss. The pandemic impacted all of us, and everybody experienced losing and giving up something that was important and valuable to them. For some, it may have been the passing of a loved one due to COVID. For others, maybe the loss of a job or a business, cancellation or postponement of important events such as weddings or graduation, giving up of set plans for 2020, and for all of us having to give up that freedom to safely go outside and spend time with our family and friends. We all, to a certain degree, experience and witness loss. And today I'm going to share my own story of loss during this pandemic and how a series of disappointments all led to what I would call a lockdown breakdown. The first 2 months of 2021 were looking much better, of course, than the previous year. The new year symbolized a fresh start and gave people a sense of hope. I myself looked forward to better tomorrows. Quarantine restrictions were starting to ease up, and that meant I had more leeway to hang out with some friends, celebrate important milestones in person, like weddings, enjoy outdoor trips that I missed last year. And things were definitely looking up at the start of the year. But slowly, come March, midway through the month, we started to hear news that the COVID cases were starting to rise again. And the daily count and reports were just staggering. The country's health crisis seemed to look worse compared to the previous year. COVID was hitting closer and closer to home, not to mention my parents are both frontliners, and my mind would flash back to the dawn of the pandemic last year and how I feared for my parents' lives. It felt like season 2 of Philippine lockdown. And one by one, the things that I had been looking forward to were slowly being cancelled again as Metro Manila was going back to ECQ. And one day I just found myself waking up early in the morning, 4 a.m., rethinking the cancelled plans, the lost opportunities, and missing the pre-pandemic normal life and how hassle-free it was compared to how we're living our life now. And I remembered the fervent hope that I had at the start of the year, and that hope was now crushed. And that's when I snapped. That was the beginning of my breakdown, and it went on for a few days. I didn't think that I would actually reach a breaking point because I'm a generally happy person. It may seem little compared to what other people were facing and other people's problems. But as my best friend put it, it's still valid. The thing with pain is that it's universal. We have similar thresholds for it, whatever the stimulus may be. And so it was okay to cry about it. It was okay to be real about it. And I had to navigate through on and off crying episodes. Heaviness would resurface when my surroundings would get quiet and all I'd hear were my thoughts. I was fine the next day, and then the following day something else would trigger the heaviness and I was back to bawling my eyes out. It was tiring being sad, being constantly sad. But eventually I got through it. and went through a processing phase to try to make sense of it all, and came out surprisingly thankful that I gained so much from that experience. And it allowed me to see loss and grief in a different light. First, it directed me to look inwardly. Personally, I did not like the vulnerability that loss exposes and the pain that you feel and have to confront and process. I mean, who does, right? Most of the time, we see loss as an invasion, an interruption to our daily routine. It is such a hassle to stop and to deal with disappointment because everything in us wants to avoid loss and pain and descent. We always want the upward and forward, continuous movement and pace of life. And I realized that I had that tendency to dismiss the confusing feelings because I had to function, I had to work. I can't stop, busy ako, wala akong oras umiyak. And that made it all the more frustrating because I could not work. I could not lead my team. I could not minister properly. And we usually try to find ways to get over pain as quickly as possible, or to find ways to numb it and to medicate it with quick fixes. But in order for us to grow and change into reflective, mature, and deep individuals, there is a need to pause. There is a need to process and to grieve our losses. We have to learn to deal with the big and small disappointments in life and all the confusing emotions that come with it as honestly as possible, and to deal with it prayerfully, to talk about it with the right people, to bring it to God who promises to listen, to comfort, and to respond to us. Secondly, it allowed me to look outward. I am not someone who easily feels for and empathizes with people in pain, people going through depression, and I saw it necessary to have to go through that breakdown so I could get even just a glimpse of what these people were going through, and to be able to genuinely say, I hear you, I get you now, I somehow understand the pain that you are going through. And I became more sensitive to people who were struggling, especially those who would express it on social media. I would normally dismiss these kinds of posts and those who would express their pain in their captions. But this time around, I would directly message that person or comment on the post just to encourage him or her and to cheer them on. And my experience also helped me take mental notes of the ways and means that I was best comforted by the people who walked alongside me in my grief. There was a friend who sent me my favorite Starbucks drink. Another friend also sent me a voice message assuring me that he was reading my messages and he was listening as he ran errands that day. And my family also gave me the time to just sit and be silent. And that was enough. Third, it directed me to also, and most importantly, look upward. I admit that it was hard to trust God during those difficult times. I couldn't see any good that would come out of my grief and hopelessness because all I felt was pain, bitterness, and heaviness. But as I have been taught in the past, even the things that we feel in our hearts can deceive us. They're not always true. And that is why our hearts have to be led to what is certain, to what is true. And the only stable, certain thing in our ever-changing world really is God and His Word. And so instead of letting my stressful circumstances dictate how I should respond and how I am to move on and move forward with my life, I had to ask God to help me believe that He is still good, that He has a plan, He still loves me, even if my feelings told me otherwise. And as I end, allow me to quote C.S. Lewis. He said, Pain insists on being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pain. It's his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. We are most keenly aware of God's character in our suffering. Grieving is the most difficult part of experiencing loss and disappointment. But this is actually a call to acknowledge that pain, to attend to it, so that we could understand ourselves more, so we could understand and empathize others more. But most importantly, it's a call to slowly lean on to Jesus, to cling on to his comforting promises that are timeless and ever true. Even when our hearts are broken, even when pain is present, we can cling on to Jesus and his promises. And I hope that encouraged you today. Again, this is Just Press Play, and you can find us in all socials: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's Just Press Play PH. If you want to be prayed for or want to share something, your thoughts, talk about something you want to get off your chest, maybe you recently went through loss or are going through grief, feel free to message us or email us at justpressplayph@gmail.com. Again, this is Nicole, and we hope that you can tune in to more of our episodes. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Paalam!